Do you suffer from stress, anxiety, or depression? Do you find it hard to focus or to contain your emotions? Any of these things can take you down. So, what then are your personal health practices? If you don't yet have an integral or holistic wellness practice, you're in the right place. Podcast host Susan Axelrod, the confidence coach, has been practicing holistic wellness for 25 years. Along the way, Qigong and Tai Chi found her. After tiptoeing in, she dove into a committed practice and became a teacher and integral wellness consultant. She'll tell you Qigong and Tai Chi changed her life. In this podcast, she interviews practitioners, inviting them to share their stories about how these practices changed their lives too. Go grab your journal. At the top of the clean page, write down, "I want to feel better." Then take a breath and tune in to see if Qigong and Tai Chi can help. Hello, friends. I am delighted to have you join me for another episode of this podcast series that I have just grown to love. Qigong changed my life. And in this series, I have been interviewing other practitioners to hear stories about how Qigong or Tai Chi have changed their lives as well. Today, my guest is Robin Brooks. Robin is a Tai Chi and Qigong teacher and visual artist whose joy is helping people of all ages and abilities. Robin is a Tai Chi Easy practice leader and graduate of the Institute for Integral Qigong and Tai Chi in Santa Barbara, California, where she completed her 200-hour teacher training. By skillfully combining age-old forms and improvising, Robin helps her students to reduce stress, improve inner and outer balance, and cultivate their Qi, or vital energy, for health and well-being. Robin lives in Topsom, Maine with her husband, John, a high school teacher, and their cat, Toshi. Hi, Robin.
Hi, Susan. Hi, everyone out there.
Thank you so much for joining me today. First of all, we have a few things in common, Maine and New Jersey. So I already love that connection. I love your bio where it says that you help students reduce stress, improve inner and outer balance, and to cultivate their vital energy for health and well-being. I absolutely love this, and this is needed so badly today, isn't it?
Absolutely. That notion of balance, that we can so easily be tipped off our center. How do we return? We all have, yeah.
Isn't it true? I know. So tell me, let's just get started by your sharing your story of how Qigong or Tai Chi changed your life. I've got my pad and pen ready. I'm listening.
Well, first of all, Susan, thank you so much for inviting me. And it's a story I love to tell, although in my classes, I know my students don't always know, so it's a long journey. And it has changed my life profoundly. And like, I just was tentative. I was going for acupuncture for years because I was a stressed out public school art teacher with hundreds of children to teach, art materials to manage, classrooms, tight schedules, you name it. It was a high stress career, which I loved. I loved the children. The system was challenging. And in 2020, I had the opportunity to retire from my quote unquote part-time teaching position with 300 children in 2.5 days, that kind of thing. And so along the way, I had some health challenges, as you would expect because our immune system, as I've learned, is impacted by stress. And our own ability to manage stress is partly what has taught me so much in this practice, because we don't eliminate stress from our lives, but we do learn how to breathe better. And a simple practice like breathing can really help to bring us into the present moment. So I was a stressed out art teacher. I decided, in 2015, I got Lyme disease, which was really unpleasant. the ticks have moved north to Maine, where I live, and didn't used to be a problem. But in the course of holistic treatment and medical treatment, I realized I couldn't put weight on my joints because it impacted my joints. So I was taking yoga classes, which were lovely, but I couldn't do the downward dog. So I thought, okay, I'm looking at the adult ed catalog, and there's a little Tai Chi Easy class. I thought, I'll try it. That was in 2014, actually, before I got Lyme disease. And so because anyway, I'm not sure the timeline, but I definitely discovered it. I took 4 semesters at adult ed and then said, I've got to go deeper. I just knew something opened in my heart, Susan. And I went and took a workshop at Omega Institute with Roger Yanka, the doctor of Oriental medicine who started the institute where I trained. And at the end of the week, he sat down next to me at breakfast and he said, so are you going to continue training? Now, he's very charming and good at this. So, but, he again sparked this curiosity, like, am I going to continue? And I went home and talked to my husband and I said, I have the opportunity to continue training with this incredibly inspiring person and to learn more and go deeper. And he said, well, and I said, it's a big investment. He said, well, it's not as expensive as a master's degree.
Through that, or as healthcare.
Yeah, I mean, so he just said, go for it. And I did. And I had to take a week off from teaching. Anyway, that was my journey. That started in 2016. And in 2019, I graduated. I began, just as he told us, in 2016, after that 1-week course, to begin sharing the practices with my community. So it changed me on multiple levels, Susan. It changed me internally in terms of the way I respond to the world, to myself, and to others. I'm able to step back from I don't take myself as seriously in a certain level. That cheerful indifference that Roger talks about, I really have embodied that as much as possible. So I don't get into as many marital conflicts. We have a more peaceful home. It's innumerable, the changes inside of me. And it really was put to the test in 2020, the year that I retired, because about 2 months before I had to make my retirement decision, I received a diagnosis of breast cancer. And in that moment, I was like, okay, Tai Chi and Qigong, if you're ever going to serve me, these practices, the 3 treasures, I just carry them with me through my diagnosis and treatment. And, I'm happy to say I'm a really healthy person today. And,
wow.
It was quite a journey. So really quite an experience.
Wow. There's so much here. I just want to pause for a second and say, thank God, that you're well and healthy, that you're well and healthy today. And you just said, you don't really eliminate stress. This is what you said, but you can learn to breathe. You can learn to breathe. And boy, did you need to breathe through a Lyme's diagnosis and a breast cancer diagnosis. You retired right before COVID hit the world. And now you're in the medical system, with breast cancer. And that really is a big story. I want you to know, I felt real emotionality coming up in me. That was a lot, in 2 minutes that you just shared with us. That was an entire decade, of a lifetime. I also want to point out to the people who are watching this video or listening to the audio, something that was so important that you said, which was, I have a more peaceful home. So I really need to park that for now, because I really want to think about that and explore a specific conversation with you about that, because I call them our youngers, our children, do need for us to have more peaceful homes. And that doesn't mean perfection. I realize peace doesn't mean perfection. But I want to thank you so much for sharing this idea here today, that people can have a more peaceful home when they, learn to breathe and find tools to support themselves. Do you understand what I'm saying there?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Because we tend to think that our own reality in the moment is just so pressing and so important. And conflicts always arise when you have to be in relationship. So I would say not only with my husband, but all my relationships are just more rich and easier. And there's just a lot to talk about there. But I'm going to let you take the lead here.
Okay, I think really more rich and easier relationships. I think I'm gonna really invite you to have another conversation on that with me. So I'll make that happen. So let's come back to your Qigong practice. One of the things that happens, I also have been through the IIQTC training with Roger. And mine were online because I started after COVID when they brought these certification opportunities online. And I've learned that a lot of the teachers say, I teach so that I practice. I wanted to ask you to share with us, what is your personal practice of Qigong or Tai Chi for you personally?
Yeah, that's a great question. I do love my classes, and for sure, I get to practice and model um, for my students, and I usually narrate what I'm experiencing as we learn to do, because that's really the core of the practice is paying attention internally to what we're experiencing. So I find that internal, what we call interoceptive awareness, is something I carry with me all the time from the moment my feet hit the floor after I get out of bed. And I'll share a little anecdote if I may, about my feet. So I have this wonderful local teacher, because one of the things that I felt when I finished my training is that I'm new to this. There are people that started like Roger Yonka started when he was about 5 or 6 with martial arts. I didn't discover the martial arts until I was well into my 50s. So I still feel like a newbie. And I really knew I needed to continue my own internal cultivation. So I have a regular a teacher that I learn with since actually, when I came back from that first level 1 training, I started with a local teacher in person. And I studied with him for a year or two. And then I realized I wasn't getting a piece that I needed. And I looked for another teacher who could help me with my alignment, because as you know, there's a lot of subtlety to the movements, particularly in Tai Chi, and people do injure themselves. People do find their knees start bothering them, or something else is going on. And I really wanted, not only for myself, but also to be the kind of teacher who could help my students find that comfort zone and make sure they stay away from injury, because we're about, wellness. So I have a local teacher. I practiced from the time my feet hit the ground, and my feet were causing my knees to be uncomfortable. So I learned that it was about how I put my weight on my feet. And so much of Tai Chi starts with the earth and the ground below and how we land on the earth. So I try to stay connected that way. I try to lengthen whenever I can remind myself, like just now I'm sitting in my chair. So Susan, you know about the 3 treasures, right? Body, breath, and mind. So right now, if we all just take a moment and we just notice how we're sitting, feel the parts of our bodies that are connected to the hair, lengthen, imagine lightness through the crown of our heads, breathe and open our heart center. Whew. These 3 little adjustments can be a touchstone throughout our day.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to, embody the practice and use the practice. But I do, with that said, I'm learning the 24 movement form, which I'm really enjoying, and continuing to play with the animal Qigong, which I was introduced to by Jill Robinson.
Yeah.
And she's delightful. And I mean, our community is so rich. It's every day for me. Try to be aware.
This is so good. It happens inevitably. I'm going to do it now. I want to invite people listening or viewing this to take a moment and go back already in this conversation. There's so many rich bits in here. Robin, when you talk about your feet, and you sort of laughed a little bit as if like, oh, feet are weird or whatever. Our feet carry us from the moment we can walk to the moment that we die. Of course, I do know there are some people who end up wheelchair bound or bed bound, but for most of us, our feet carry us. And this is something I've learned also about my feet, that it is absolutely foundational. And as you already said, your feet are touching the earth below. And there's so much beautiful mind illustration that happens. You brought us into the three treasures. I think it took you like 5 seconds to invite us to come into alignment, sit the body up, etc. And I want to tell you, I get it when you say, when you just shared with us, I wake up and it's part of my existence now. It's simply part of my existence now. Tell us, Robin, talk about your teaching now a little bit. You shared with us your practice. It's in you. It's in you every day. And I just want to let you know, my BFF is a retired art teacher from public schools. Yeah. And Debbie. And so I knew the story that you shared with us. And I knew what you were talking about that stress with the systems and so on. And so now to see you, the interoception of which you speak, the way we feel, the experience of feeling inside, it's an entirely different animal, isn't it?
It really is. And truthfully, even in the last few years of my teaching with children, I invited the bell. We breathed. I'll push my chair back. I'd say, all right, boys and girls, let's take a big breath. Inhale and exhale. And so I was able to help them settle and come into their bodies, because before we lifted our arms, if I'd asked them to take a breath, and this is true of most people, you ask someone to take a deep breath and they go like this.
Yes.
Up here.
Yes.
And the other thing, and this is a big story too about women and men, that we hold our bellies in because we're trying to be svelte and beautiful. And so by tensing there, we restrict our lymphatic flow, we restrict our deep breathing. And so we really have to embrace the Buddha belly.
Yes, I love this. Robin, do you teach children today in your classes at all or not?
I have done a little. I volunteered for 8 weeks a couple of years ago at a Boys and Girls Club. It was after school on Friday afternoon, not the ideal time to hurt the little ones. I teach adults through the local adult education program here in my region. It's called Mary Meeting Adult Ed, and those are in-person classes. I'm also affiliated with the Healer Within Foundation, which is a international organization. And my Friday morning Zoom class is listed there. It's a low-cost Goodwill donation-based class that meets on Friday mornings Eastern time at 9 a.m. And in the summertime in Maine, and Susan, you may be around for this, on Saturday mornings in Topsom, my hometown, there's a beautiful park called Head of Tide where there's a waterfall. And we meet there on Saturday mornings, most Saturdays from June through September. And you'd have to email me to get the list of dates because I do travel a little in the summer. But it's a lovely place, 9:30 a.m. on Saturday morning, and we're out in nature and breathing. And, Roger always said, and I think this is conventional wisdom about Tai Chi and Qigong, learn indoors, but practice outdoors. So I do try to practice outdoors as often as I can. I love nature, and even my little backyard, I have a little sanctuary area. And
oh my gosh, this is so good. We just have another minute or two, but I just want to say there's something, this is such a rich and deep conversation. This is why I love these conversations. I guess the truth is when you are in the world of what we call the way, you are already deep. And a lot of us have gotten there because of shallow, And so I wanted to point out that you said to us, Roger sat down next to me and said, so are you going to continue? That was an activating question that you and I, as trained by the Institute, have learned we can ask of anyone. And in your teaching, even just today, you're teaching, you are a teacher, whether it's art or Qigong or Tai Chi, whatever it is, that's obvious. You have a teacher persona, teacher energy, and this is so desperately needed today. This is something that we can learn even from your sharing it with us that anyone can do. And then the other thing that you said said to us is that Roger's teaching, which I also have learned, is don't wait, begin sharing with others.
Right.
Right. Begin sharing with others, share what you know, share what you've learned. And that's something that I could feel that you already also do with your students. So let me ask you, where can people find you, Robin?
I've got a website. It's called robinbrooksart.com, and it's an online gallery, but I do have a Tai Chi page, and I have some general information there. So please do reach out. I have a contact page. You can email me through that. The Healer Within Foundation has listings for my classes. And what else? Yeah, Merry Meeting Adult Ed. If you're local to the Maine area, I have students that come from Portland or other, locations to come, and we have a wonderful community. So
That's so beautiful. Well, listen, Robin, Maine is the summer place to be. So from this podcast, I hope and encourage people who are spending some time over the summer in Maine will look you up and attend one of your beautiful Saturday classes. I can tell you I will be. I will be there and I will attend. So I want to thank you so much for this beautiful conversation. I want to ask you, how are you today with your breast cancer diagnosis?
I am, it's bizarre, but well, I'm healthier than ever. I just feel so good. I have had wonderful care here in Maine. We are very blessed. My oncologist is connected with the Dana-Farber Institute in Boston. She's the head of breast oncology. It was a very, caught very early. So I was very fortunate. And so many things, it's not one disease. And we tend to react when we hear those words, but mine was the quote unquote good kind, as my friend who's a physician said. But with that said, I've done everything in my power. And this is another phrase I wanted to share with your audience, which is called yang sheng, which means nourish life. So I really encourage everyone listening, find out what you can do to nourish your own life. Empower yourself. That's what the Healer Within Foundation is about. That's what Dr. J is all about. It's not about getting to be an expert at Tai Chi or learning some complicated form. It's about caring for yourself deeply. So, Susan, thank you so much for this beautiful.
Oh my gosh, I literally have chills throughout my body. This is so good. Did you say nourish love or nourish life?
Life.
I wrote down nourish love.
I love that. Well, love is a.
I know. And then I realized, oh, you said nourish life. Either way, for any single person who sees this or hears us, choose nourish love or nourish life. I'm on that train with you, Robin. Thank you so much for your time today and this conversation. I'm going to be in touch about the other topic of creating a peaceful home through Qigong and Tai Chi. Thank you, Robin. Take good care. I'll see you soon.
And to you. Thanks, Susan.